Hi there, and welcome to part 2 of my podcast on cancel culture. I would like to talk a little bit more about the motivations behind cancel culture in this second part of the podcast. I have been using the recent example of a television personality in the UK called Greg Wallace, and I have been speaking about how cancel culture is not beneficial to humanity in the bigger picture, and how it is going to escalate and it's not going to be in the best interests of humanity. I would like to talk a little bit more about the motivations behind this recent example of cancel culture and cancel culture in general. The claims of a lot of women that he engages in sexually inappropriate behaviour escalated as the various different people have come forward. It started off with he makes lewd comments, he tells dirty jokes, he mentions details of his sex life. It started off with that kind of thing, and then it moved on to no, he touched me on the backside, he did this, he did that. It's gradually escalated. Again, I'm not here to debate whether it is or isn't true. However, I find it laughable and lamentable that women who have managed to get to their 40s and 50s have not yet learned the skill of assertiveness. And if somebody is saying things to you that you find inappropriate and unacceptable, I think it would be the sign of a healthy society if that person were able to vocally speak up to this person at the time and say, what you're doing is making me uncomfortable, I don't like what you're saying, can you please cease and desist, or I will take the matter further. This would actually be helpful. I am not saying that there is anything wrong with somebody finding it inappropriate for a man to talk about sex in a lewd or suggestive way around them, or to make dirty jokes around them. However, what I do have a massive problem with is our society's demonisation of assertiveness. Assertiveness is one of the most valuable, and I would actually go so far as to say beautiful, qualities that a human being can possess. And unfortunately, our society has demonised it, particularly in women. So what I am seeing going on with this particular example of cancel culture is actually quite an unhealthy dynamic, because most of these women did not directly challenge him to his face when he did the things that he did or said the things that he said. And it's at the point where they could and should have done so. He is not a violent criminal to the best of anyone's knowledge. There is no evidence to suggest that he is sort of a large-scale sexual abuser, shall we say. So I think that it is possible that in many cases these women could have said something to him at the time, and I think the fact that they didn't highlights a key issue which is at the heart of this case, which is women's continued refusal to learn the basic human skill of assertiveness, which is one of the most valuable skills that anybody can have. This is a trial by media, and it's not useful, and it's not teaching women how to assert themselves in a proactive, positive and decisive way. That is my take on that. I do believe that modern feminism has embraced many toxic ideas, and I also believe that there is an element to modern feminism of perhaps hating male sexuality, could be too strong a way of putting it, but attacking male sexuality and its more overt signs. I am not, again, commenting on how healthy Greg Wallace's sexuality is or isn't. What I am saying is that modern feminism has embraced the idea that male sexuality is problematic in some way. They call it toxic masculinity. I think that that is a runaway train, personally, and I think it is going to become more and more so as time goes by. I wonder, and I'm not saying that this is the case, but I wonder if perhaps there is an element here of this seeming attack on male sexuality in the 21st century being revenge for past oppressions as far as women are concerned. Is it perhaps the case that women in the 21st century who consider themselves feminists are trying vindictively to attack male sexuality in all its forms? Perhaps, maybe not. But as I said in my previous podcast, and I absolutely stand by this to my dying breath, if somebody genuinely does have a problem, and I guess the adjective that you would be looking for in this case would be something along the lines of oversexed, perhaps, possibly even sleazy, but what I am saying and what I said in the previous podcast, and I stand by it, is that if somebody has a sexuality that is out of balance, the correct way to address this is with compassion, not public shaming. And I stand by that. Publicly shaming somebody is not useful. The second observation that I would like to make as regards the motivations behind cancel culture and this particular case of cancel culture is the link between cancel culture and fear of confrontation. In modern Western society, I have observed that a very large majority of human beings still have a very great fear of confrontation. This is part of what I would consider to be the demonization of what I would call the divine masculine or the sacred masculine. One of the aspects of the divine masculine, the sacred masculine, is assertiveness. Being able to confront something when it needs to be confronted in a healthy, calm, proactive way. However, a lot of people have this mistaken idea that to confront things, that to confront people when you are not pleased with something that they have done or unhappy with something that they have done is somehow a problem, that you are somehow being antisocial or unfeminine or just straight up bad if you are confronting people over their behaviour. And a lot of women actually consider that confronting things passive-aggressively and indirectly is somehow helpful or useful, and it isn't. And it's leading to an even more toxic culture than the one which spawned it. Dealing with men's transgressions, even the transgressions of men who have an out of balance sexuality and behave in toxic and or sexually harassing ways, dealing with this indirectly and in a vindictive and attacking way, i.e. trying to have their career destroyed, is not helpful, and it's not any less toxic than the actual behaviour which is being called out. Dealing with somebody at the time, and obviously I'm not extending this to people that are actual criminals, violent criminals or sex criminals, that's not what I'm talking about. If somebody is just being a sleazebag, then you have a right to confront that, and there is no evidence thus far to suggest that Greg Wallace is a violent criminal. Ergo, it is okay to challenge someone like that directly, face to face. This is an issue. Lack of assertiveness is an issue. Actually, a lot of men even have this problem. Our society, Western society in general, has demonised assertiveness and has made confronting people directly when you're not happy with them persona non grata, and has sort of demonised it and pushed it to the outer fringes of what is considered acceptable human behaviour. Most people are not good at assertiveness and confronting things face to face, and they think that it means conflict and aggression, etc., etc. It doesn't have to. You can confront somebody whose behaviour has offended you or whose behaviour has harmed you in some way directly, face to face. You can confront them in a calm and measured way, and if that person is not receptive to that and they go on the attack and they're not willing to listen to what you have to say, then that is the point at which you take matters further, and that is the point at which formal complaints get made, etc., etc. Most of the women involved in this most recent example of cancel culture did not follow those steps. They did not confront them face to face. So one example would be the woman who was horrified when he was speaking about details of his own sex life or was using sexualized language. If this made them uncomfortable, the correct course of action would have been to say, "You're making me uncomfortable, stop, or I am making a complaint about you." However, what a lot of these women did is sit on their hands and silence themselves and wait passive-aggressively for an opportunity to come up to twist the knife. This is how I am seeing it. This is what I am seeing is happening, and it doesn't help anybody. That in and of itself is a toxic culture, and trying to challenge one toxic culture with another doesn't work. The next observation that I would like to make is that cancel culture is a cult. It is operating along the lines of a cult. It has many of the features of a cult. There is a list online of the features and characteristics of a cult. It has many of those. It also has a strong virtue signalling element, so that is a very strong motivation as regards the bandwagon jumping that you see going on where cancel culture is concerned. Any opportunity many human beings can find to make themselves look good or self-promote, they will take. If you're operating in your life mostly unconsciously, then you will seize upon virtue signalling with great enthusiasm, and that's in large part what I am seeing going on where cancel culture is concerned. Strong virtue signalling element. So I think that covers pretty much everything that that I have to say about the subject of cancel culture for the time being. I hope you enjoyed listening to this podcast or that you got something useful out of it. Please consider liking, subscribing, etc. Bye for now, and thanks for listening.